Follow the bouncing ball. Boing, boing, boing. Chris and Matt had the dangerous hobby of urban exploration, and when they heard their old public school was closed and was slated for demolition, well, they had to look. Consider it a fond farewell. Perhaps. Want to bet the window to the old supply room is still unlocked? Matt said to Chris. For once, when they were teens, they had snuck into the school. This was in the era before security systems. They had snuck into the school through the supply room window, which had been left slightly ajar. It was still ajar. Not much had changed in 15 years, except for a thick layer of dust. The supply room had shelves of old textbooks, some dating back to the 1950s. Chris took one down and, scanning it, concluded that kids must have been able to read a whole lot better back in the day. The explorers were sure the school didn't have any kind of alarm system. So, for the next hour, they explored their old classrooms, taking lots of pictures, but not taking anything away with them, lest they be charged with theft. Finally, they ended up in the gym and started laughing. Remember how huge this place looked when we were kids? Matt laughed. It's not so big now. Hey, look, Chris said, pointing. A solitary basketball sat alone in the middle of the dusty floor. So Matt walked over and picked it up. Is it totally deflated? Chris asked, which Matt answered by bouncing the ball on the floor. Seems fine. Hey, remember when we were all in for Michael Jordan and had ball caps with the Chicago Bulls logo on them? I do, Matt answered. That was some mean-looking bull as I remember it. Chris looked at Matt, then looked at the ball, and said, Well, Michael, still got it? Let's see if you can swish the net. So Matt took a stance, then took a shot, and hit the rim, the basketball falling to the court, where it continued bouncing, and bouncing, and bouncing, and bouncing, and bouncing. What's in that thing? Chris gasped. Helium? The ball continued to bounce around the floor, as if being dribbled by an invisible man. Suddenly the dribbling stopped. The ball hovered in midair, and then it came directly at Matt, as if the invisible one had thrown it to him. Matt instinctively caught it, then, after hesitating for a moment, lobbed it to Chris, who also hesitated before lightly tossing the ball to thin air, where something caught it. The basketball just hung there a moment, and then the invisible man shifted from basketball to dodgeball. Dodgeball of the murderous kind. The basketball flew at Chris with incredible velocity, moving so fast he had to duck, the ball slamming into the wall directly behind him. The basketball went flying around the gym, striking the walls, the floor, the ceiling with such force it made the entire building shake. To be hit with such a projectile would hurt, or worse. Chris and Matt fought off the urge to hit the deck and did the next best thing. They ran. Out in the corridor, they ran to the old supply room, slamming the door behind them. The bouncing ball had followed them all the way, and once they were inside the room, it struck the door over and over and over and over again, as if to pound it into splinters. Escaping via the window, Chris and Matt ran the 2 blocks to their vehicle and burnt rubber out of there, determined to leave the area ASAP. Traffic was light, but as they headed south on Kerr, they saw something approaching them in their lane. They couldn't make it out at first, but then they realized it was a basketball, maybe the basketball, bouncing towards them at speed. Chris tried to change lanes, but the ball leapt into the air, slamming into the windshield like a cannonball and shattering it as Chris lost control, the car slamming into the side of a fitness salon. Chris and Matt woke up in the emergency ward. They were both covered with cuts and bruises, and Matt had a slight concussion. They told the cops that Chris lost control when a kid ran in front of them, and he tried to steer around him. No way they could tell the truth. Later, when they were alone, Chris whispered, "What was that thing? A ghost, like a poltergeist? Or an evil spirit? We didn't imagine it. It followed us." "I don't know what it was," Matt, who was still groggy, said. "I only know I'm never going back there." But then they both heard it. Something was coming down the hall. Something that sounded like a basketball being dribbled on a hard floor. And that's when Chris and Matt both dribbled all over the floor too. The moral of the story? It's sad to think a bouncing ball can turn 2 grown men into basket cases. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used today courtesy of Pix Here, that's PX here, while the music was the classic Ghost Story by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod. The thumbnail image, by the way, shows me during my playing days as a bench warmer with the Brooklyn Nuts.